The devotional traditions of India have sometimes been judged as an inferior form of spirituality, a path meant for those who are less able to appreciate the deeper metaphysical truths. The various stories told are written off as ancient fairy tales, mythology tailor-made for the simple-minded and superstitious. The narrations of how the boy Krishna lifted a giant mountain on his little finger, of how Hanuman the monkey flew in the sky, of how the goddess Durga, mounted on her lion, killed the shape-shifting demon Mahishasura, all seem entirely ungrounded and irrational. But these stories form an integral part of the spiritual culture of Hinduism. So how does one look at these amazing, fantastic tales? Essentially, one can approach them in any or all of three ways. Some can be seen entirely as symbolic, others as based on historical events, and some as an actual reality to get absorbed in. For example, in one Purana, there is the symbolic story of how Lord Shiva and Parvati are given a fruit by the celestial sage Narada. A challenge is set to their two sons Ganesha and Murugan that whoever can go round the whole world 3 times will be declared the winner. Upon hearing this, Murugan sets off immediately and races around the world on his peacock. Ganesha, on the other hand, stares lovingly at his parents and walks around them 3 times. Shiva and Parvati are puzzled by his actions, but Ganesha explains that for his brother, this external reality is his world, but for him, the world is defined by his parents. Having been moved by this sentiment, Shiva and Parvati declare Ganesha the winner and the embodiment of wisdom. What this story highlights is that the fruit of life is not found in conquering the outside material world, but in honouring and delving deep into our own truth and what we connect with within. Hindus have realised that words and philosophy can easily be forgotten, but a story can drive the message home with far more impact. This tale is one of many examples of how various deities are placed in a certain context to symbolically deliver a specific spiritual lesson. The Mahabharata and Ramayana, however, are vast Indian narratives which are classed as itihasa or histories. The Mahabharata tells the story of the great feud between the 2 royal cousins, the Kauravas and the Pandavas, while the Ramayana describes how Lord Rama rescued his wife Sita from the tyrant Ravana. While there are many details and spin-off stories which have been developed over millennia, there is plenty of evidence from manuscripts, from archaeological, astrological and even botanical sources which support the core series of events that have been told. Having said that, the critical point is that the emphasis on historical accuracy has little importance to the devotional seeker. A devotee is not looking to find truth in the outside world of facts and events, but in the inner world of his relationship with God. This is why Hindus have felt free to embellish, adapt and retell stories according to their bhava or devotional connection. This is clearly evidenced with the Ramayana. The original Sanskrit version was written by sage Valmiki, a contemporary of Lord Rama, but over time, numerous other Ramayanas began emerging. Perhaps the most popular is Tulsidas' retelling in Hindi, known as the Ramacharita-manas. Whilst keeping almost all the key events of Valmiki's narration, Tulsidas adds a far more devotional flavour. He explicitly opens up the divinity of Lord Rama and focuses on the love and the surrender of the devotees around him. The fact that this has become for many the principal account of the Ramayana shows that it is the devotional potential of the narrative and not the factual accuracy that carries the most importance. Hindus have recognised that constantly listening to and remembering events suffused with devotion impacts and elevates the individual. But for this to work, one cannot just see the story as a metaphor, nor can it be seen as just a past historical event. Instead, it must be perceived as a reality that is current and completely relevant to one's daily life. To understand how this works, the first thing to do is define what we mean by reality.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
These electrical signals in our brain are what we can call our objective reality, the world of matter, objects and living beings. This external physical world can be tested scientifically with reason and evidence. But the experience of life is far more than just an external world. We have thoughts and feelings. There are desires and fears. As a result, every individual also has a different way of looking at the external world. Along with the outside facts that our senses perceive, we all carry an individual narrative of how we view the world and what life means to us. This lens through which we view life is our subjective reality. As Ganesha showed earlier, the fruit of wisdom is not gained by incessantly trying to piece together evidence from the external world, but in delving deep into our own truth in the right way. The various bhakti saints and masters have declared and demonstrated that the ecstatic divine states of love are attained by allowing one's view of life to be taken over by these divine narratives. By intensifying our one-pointed devotion, gradually our subjective world becomes filled with thoughts and feelings of God. Little by little, our ego and material desires begin to wither away. Eventually, through grace, we achieve a state of love which perforates the boundaries of our subjective reality to realize our ultimate relationship with God, a relationship which reveals that even the outside objective world is nothing but a part of God Himself. But the cold rational mind which insists on facts and evidence from the outside world will not be able to experience the results of devotional practices.
You and I and every other living creature are machines of ineffable complexity. This complexity and its powerful illusion of design is why so many people succumb to the God temptation, the temptation to evade, by invoking a designer, the responsibility to explain.
Dawkins sees belief in God as a cowardly escape from the need to explain the universe, but this is because his goal and quest is completely opposite to that of a devotee. As Pascal stated, the mind does not understand the reasons of the heart. To witness the profound effects of the various devotional stories, one has to abandon the limited logic which incessantly points to the external world and instead use the intelligence of the heart. There needs to be a suspension of judgment and a sense of innocence which allows one to enter into the reality of the story. Having said that, we should understand that innocence does not mean vain sentimentalism or naivety. The Bhakti saints and teachers were some of the most intelligent, grounded intellectual giants. There are huge bodies of literature dealing with the proper science of devotion, outlining the different stages through which a devotee goes through. They have laid down the regulative discipline practices, as well as described the different metaphysical states of consciousness. All of this has been laid down for the devotee to follow and replicate. We should understand that a narrative controls thoughts and perspective. It arouses emotions and dictates behaviour. The story we tell ourselves in our mind is the story of our life. Every individual has a choice to decide what story they want to cling to. That decision provides the direction they walk in. Rather than allowing the media which incessantly delivers negative, sensationalized stories to dictate their narrative, a devotee is one who seeks to contemplate on the stories of the divine. The scriptural devotional tales are not based on vain fantasy, but are specifically designed to uplift and change the individual. A devotee gives himself to the stories which glorify his chosen form of God because he wants to increase the love for his deity. For that kind of devotee, the stories in scripture are not just fiction or imaginative tales, they are a reality. And by reality we mean that these events did not just happen, they are happening. They are not just historical, they are current, here and now. This is best illustrated by the scripture known as the Bhagavad Purana. It is filled with wonderful stories of Lord Vishnu's various incarnations, as well as the expressions and examples of his various devotees. But the real climax comes with the telling of Krishna's birth and pastimes in Vrindavan. We read about the love that his mother Yashoda had for him. We witness the friendship of the cowherd boys, and above all we are told about the intense, romantic love of the simple milkmaids. The Bhagavad continually depicts Krishna as the glorious, infinite divine personality who is the original cause of all causes. But at the same time, we see how he mischievously stole butter from different houses, how he played with cowherds and danced with the gopis, and of how he heroically defeated every demon that threatened them. We hear how he stole the hearts of all the residents of Vrindavan who thought of nothing else and depended on him at every turn. By reading the stories of the Bhagavad Purana and meditating on the pastimes of Krishna, our reality becomes enveloped by these same devotional sentiments. The various pastimes of Krishna no longer become events that took place thousands of years ago. They are events which are going on now. When we look at our life, at work or at home with our family, we begin to find that a small drop of this love that is in Vrindavan begins to infiltrate everything that we do. God, as Krishna, becomes a living force in our world. Just as we hear about the devotees who surrendered to him, we also learn to surrender our lives to him. We learn from the arrogance of certain personalities, and we try to overcome our own pride. We see how devotees withstood suffering and didn't flinch in their faith. We understand the need to be selfless and completely humble. These stories become the narrative in our minds and hearts. They become the reality through which we view life. Added to this, we perform various spiritual practices. We chant and sing Krishna's name continuously, allowing the vibration of the divine mantra to steady and purify the mind. We worship the temple images and offer our prayers to them. We surround ourselves with other like-minded individuals who are also focused on loving God. We go on pilgrimage to holy sites, which carry the ambience and energy of the love of Krishna. In this way, our whole world becomes centered on Krishna. Everything we do is about loving Krishna and serving him. The longing to know the truth, to contact and experience God firsthand, leads us to intensify our love and surrender. Eventually, as the masters and saints have shown, through the narrative of these stories, we reach a state of consciousness, a state of pure, unconditional divine love. This is a love which dissolves the ego and any sense of material desire. It is a love that allows one to have the darshan or vision of God in ourselves, in others, and in all creation. It is a love that gets readily distributed selflessly to the masses. It is a love that transports us to the ultimate transcendent divine realm. Many thanks for listening.